Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ibrahim Traoré's era. Today we step into a story that is not just about Burkina Faso, but about the future of the entire African continent. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has launched a project so daring, so ambitious, that it could change the way Africa feeds itself forever. A $50 million state farm, stretching across thousands of acres of fertile land, has just been inaugurated in Burkina Faso. This is not a small experiment. This is not a symbolic gesture. This is a revolution in agriculture, a war against hunger, poverty and dependency. When Traoré stood before the people to announce this vision, his voice thundered with conviction. By 2029, Burkina Faso will ban the importation of food. We will eat what we grow, we will grow what we eat, and we will feed not only ourselves, but the whole of Africa. Pause for a moment. Do you understand the weight of these words? In a world where Africa spends over $60 billion every year importing food, rice from Asia, wheat from Europe, milk powder from America, a small landlocked nation is saying, we will break this chain. This is not just policy, this is rebellion. Traoré's plan is sweeping. Farmers are being recruited from every corner of Burkina Faso. Youth with no jobs are being mobilized into agricultural brigades. And in a move that stunned the world, Traoré announced that prisoners with petty crimes will no longer rot behind bars. Instead, they will work in the fields, their energy redirected from idleness to productivity. Why waste able-bodied men in prison, he asked, when their hands can grow food for the nation? This is not just governance, this is vision. A vision that says no Burkinabe will go hungry. Not in 2029, not ever again. The scale of the project is staggering. Thousands of acres have already been cleared. Irrigation systems are being built, and agricultural experts from engineers to soil scientists are being recruited in their thousands. Burkina Faso, a nation often dismissed as poor, is building the largest state farm project in modern African history, and the symbolism cannot be ignored. In a land where Thomas Sankara once said, "He who feeds you controls you," Ibrahim Traoré is now turning those words into flesh and blood reality. Viewers, I want you to picture this scene. The opening day of the farm. Soldiers stood side by side with farmers, hoes in their hands ready to till the land. Former prisoners once forgotten by society, now wore uniforms marked agricultural worker. True freedom is not begging the IMF for loans to buy rice. True freedom is not waiting for food aid sacks stamped with foreign flags. True freedom is the soil beneath your feet, the crops in your hands, and the certainty that your children will never starve. And this is why Traoré's project is more than just farming. It is nation building. It is dignity restored. But of course, the world is watching and not everyone is clapping. The corporations that make billions from dumping food imports into Africa are not celebrating. The powers that benefit from African dependency are not smiling. They know that if Burkina Faso succeeds, other African nations will follow. And if that happens, the chains of food dependency, one of the strongest tools of neo-colonial control, will shatter. So yes, this is not just agriculture. This is war. A war for sovereignty. And Traoré is fighting it with tractors instead of tanks, with seeds instead of bullets, with farmers instead of soldiers. But make no mistake, it is just as revolutionary, just as dangerous to those who want Africa weak. This project is about people, the beating heart of Burkina Faso. When Traoré announced that prisoners with petty crimes would no longer waste their lives behind cold, rusting bars but instead work the soil, the world was shocked. Some critics whispered, "This is forced labor." Others said, "This is too radical." But the people of Burkina Faso understood immediately. They knew this was not punishment. This was redemption. Imagine a young man jailed for stealing bread because he was hungry. Imagine a woman imprisoned for unpaid debts, leaving her children to starve. Imagine thousands of youth wasting away in cells, their energy rotting into despair. Traoré looked at them and said, "You are not criminals. You are workers. You are farmers. You are part of the revolution." Overnight, prison uniforms were exchanged for farming tools. Men who once broke rocks in silence now plowed the earth with hope. Women who once wept behind bars now planted maize, sorghum and millet with songs on their lips. One former prisoner was interviewed by a journalist. His voice shook with emotion. "I was sentenced for stealing food. Today I am growing food. I used to feel like a burden. Now I feel like a builder of my nation." Traoré has given me a second life. Do you hear that? A second life. This is not punishment. This is resurrection. And it did not stop with the prisoners. The youth of Burkina Faso, long condemned to idleness and unemployment, were called to join the agricultural brigades. Traoré understood that farming is not only about muscles, it is about brains. Thousands of professionals were recruited. Soil scientists, engineers, irrigation experts, agricultural economists. For the first time, educated youth, who once dreamed of fleeing to Europe, were now saying, "We will stay. We will build our nation." Do you see what is happening? A country once seen as poor and desperate is becoming a laboratory of self-reliance. Burkina Faso is not only feeding itself, it is reinventing itself. And let us not underestimate the psychological shift. For decades, Africans were made to believe we cannot feed ourselves, that we must rely on foreign aid, on food imports, on charity. Traoré has shattered that illusion. He has told his people, "You are capable, you are enough, you are strong." This confidence is more powerful than the $50 million itself. Because money can build irrigation, money can buy tractors, but only belief can build nations. And belief is spreading like wildfire. The enemies of Africa see it too. The prisons were no longer symbols of despair. They became centers of transformation. Men and women who once wasted away behind bars now returned to their communities as trained farmers. Families reunited. Villages gained new workers. Lives once thrown away were reborn. And the youth, once they fled to Europe by boats and deserts desperate for jobs. But now many stayed. They worked in the fields, in food processing plants, in irrigation projects. They became proud builders of a new Burkina Faso. Instead of dying in the Mediterranean Sea, they were harvesting rice along the rivers of their homeland. Do you see the power of vision? A simple decision to feed ourselves changed everything. But the path was not free of threats. The import lobbies grew desperate. Smugglers tried to flood Burkina Faso with cheap foreign rice, undermining local farmers. Western governments whispered that sanctions might follow if democracy was not restored. Aid agencies threatened to cut food support if imports were blocked. But Traoré did not waver. His message was simple. We will not starve just to please foreign corporations. We will not beg while our soil is fertile. We will not kneel when we can stand. These words echoed across Africa. In Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, and Kenya, youth chanted, "If Burkina Faso can feed itself, so can we." Farmers' unions across the continent began calling on their governments to copy Traoré's model. By 2029, the day of reckoning arrived. In a national ceremony broadcast live, Traoré stood before the nation, his voice carrying like thunder. From today, Burkina Faso will no longer import food. From today, we will eat only what we grow. From today, we declare victory in the war against hunger. Burkina Faso had tripled its grain production. Hunger rates had fallen to historic lows. Exports to neighboring countries had begun. The prison system was now a labor force. The youth were employed. The nation was united. But the symbolism was greater than the statistics. For the first time since independence, Burkina Faso was truly free. Not free in words, not free in speeches, free in the stomach, free in the soul. And viewers, let me tell you, freedom in the stomach is the foundation of all freedom. A hungry people cannot fight. A hungry people cannot resist. A hungry people will sell their dignity for bread. But a people who can feed themselves, they are unstoppable. That is why Traoré's project matters. It is not only about maize or rice. It is about dignity. It is about power. It is about telling the world, we are no longer beggars. We are no longer puppets. We are no longer slaves. And so as 2029 dawned, Burkina Faso declared itself the food hub of Africa. And the world could no longer ignore it. Investors who once dismissed the country now begged for partnerships. Neighbors who once pitied them now asked for advice. Africa, once mocked as incapable, was now looking at a small landlocked nation for inspiration. The revolution had triumphed. The time of dependency is over. The age of dignity has begun. Burkina Faso has shown the way. Now Africa must follow. This is Ibrahim Traoré's era. The revolution is not tomorrow. The revolution is not someday. The revolution is now.